Welcome back to G Fun Facts Online. Today, we are going to shrink down to the size of a grain of rice and enter one of the most densely populated, chaotic, and potentially deadly environments on Earth. Imagine a city with millions of inhabitants. These citizens live in total darkness, inside cramped, humid tunnels. They are constantly touching one another, walking over each other, and even sharing food mouth to mouth. They are surrounded by their own waste and the decaying remains of their food. In human terms, this is not just a city, it is a biological time bomb. It is the perfect recipe for a catastrophic plague that should wipe out the entire population in days. Yet, in the world of ants, this is just daily life. And remarkably, they don't just survive, they thrive. Ant colonies are marvels of biological engineering, not just for their architecture, which we will discuss later, but for their epidemiological resilience. Despite living in conditions that should theoretically make them easy targets for bacteria, fungi, and viruses, ant colonies rarely succumb to mass infection. They have evolved a sophisticated multi-layered defense system known as social immunity. This is the topic of our deep dive today. We are going to look at how an ant colony functions, not as a group of individuals, but as a single, cohesive immune system. We are going to explore the chemistry, the behavior, and even the architectural engineering that allows them to fight off diseases that have been trying to kill them for 100 million years. To truly understand how ants fight disease, we have to fundamentally shift our perspective. We need to stop viewing ants as individual insects and start viewing the colony as a single animal, a concept biologists call the superorganism. In this analogy, the queen is not a ruler. She is simply the reproductive organ, the ovaries of the superorganism. The workers are the somatic cells, the muscle and tissue that maintain the body. The foragers are the circulatory system, bringing nutrients in. And social immunity? That is the white blood cells and the antibodies. Just as your body will ruthlessly sacrifice a single infected cell via programmed cell death to save the tissue, an ant colony will sacrifice an individual worker to save the colony. This is the cold, hard logic that drives every aspect of their hygiene behavior. The health of the many outweighs the survival of the few. This concept explains why social insects are so successful despite the high disease risks of group living. It is called the dilution effect and social prophylaxis. By pooling their resources, ants can mount defenses that are impossible for a solitary insect. A lone beetle has to rely entirely on its own internal immune system. But an ant? An ant has 10,000 sisters ready to groom off a fungal spore before it even penetrates her skin. And recent research from late 2024 and 2025 has shown us that this system is even more dynamic than we thought. It is a learning network that can remember past infections and physically restructure the nest to stop a pandemic. So let us walk through the layers of this defense system, starting from the outside in. The first line of defense is border control. Long before a pathogen enters an ant's body, it has to bypass the colony's external defenses. The most visible form of this is allogrooming, which is the act of one ant cleaning another. If you have ever watched ants, you have seen this. But this is not just a social bonding ritual like humans hugging. It is a rigorous medical procedure. When a forager returns to the nest, she is often covered in dust, pollen, and potentially deadly fungal spores like Metarhizium or Beauveria. Nest mates immediately inspect her, using their sensitive antennae to detect foreign particles. But here is the fascinating part. They do not just brush off the dirt, they lick it up. They clean their sisters with their mouths. Now you might think, wouldn't that just infect the cleaner? This is where ant anatomy gets incredible. Ants have a specialized pouch in their mouth called the infrabuccal pocket. It acts like a trash compactor. As the ant cleans her sister, the debris and spores are trapped in this pocket, preventing them from entering the ant's gut. Inside this pocket, the material is compacted into a solid pellet, but the ant doesn't just store it, she treats it. While the pellet is in the pocket, the ant secretes antimicrobial compounds that kill or neutralize the spores. It is literally a sterilization chamber inside their mouth. Once the waste is sterilized, the ant spits out the pellet in a designated waste area. This keeps the pathogen from ever infecting the host or the cleaner. But what happens when an ant dies? Death is inevitable in a colony of thousands. A corpse is a breeding ground for disease. If left to rot, it could kill the colony. This brings us to the second behavior, necrophoresis, which literally means carrying the dead. For a long time, scientists thought ants detected death by the smell of rot, specifically fatty acids like oleic acid. But newer research suggests it is more subtle. Ants are detecting the absence of life signs. Live ants constantly evaporate specific chemicals called cuticular hydrocarbons. When an ant dies, that chemical signal stops, and the death cues begin. Specialized undertaker ants pick up the corpse and carry it to a refuse pile or a graveyard located far from the brood chambers. These undertakers are the quarantine squad. They often remain at the periphery of the colony, never entering the deep nest, to prevent bringing pathogens back into the heart of the city. Now, let's move to the second layer of defense, chemical warfare. Ants were mastering pharmacology millions of years before humans discovered penicillin. They act as a mobile pharmacy. The cornerstone of this defense is the metapleural gland. This gland is unique to ants and is located on their thorax. It secretes a potent mixture of acidic compounds and phenols. These are broad-spectrum antibiotics and antifungals. Ants will rub their legs over this gland and then smear the secretion over their bodies and the bodies of their nestmates. It is essentially a prophylactic antiseptic gel that they apply every day. But they don't just use their own bodies. Some species, like the wood ant Formica paralugubris, outsource their medicine. These ants actively forage for solidified resin from coniferous trees, like pine and spruce. This resin is rich in terpenes, the compounds trees use to protect themselves from rot. The ants bring chunks of this resin into the nest and place them near the vulnerable brood, but they don't stop there. In a remarkable display of chemistry, they often spray their own formic acid onto the resin. Recent studies have shown that this mixture creates a synergistic effect. The combination of the ant's acid and the tree's resin produces an antimicrobial agent that is far more potent than either substance alone. It is 1 + 1 = 3. We also have to talk about venom. We usually think of ant venom, like a fire ant sting, as a weapon against predators. But for many species, it is primarily a cleaning product. Species like the black garden ant lack a stinger, but have a specialized nozzle called an acidopore. They spray formic acid on their brood and nest surfaces to sterilize them. It is industrial-strength fumigation. Now, we arrive at perhaps the most chilling part of the story. We have talked about prevention and medicine. But what happens when an individual is too sick to save? This brings us to the eat me signal. This mechanism was elucidated in breakthrough studies between 2023 and 2025. The problem is the brood, specifically the pupae. These are the developing young encased in cocoons. They are immobile. If an adult ant feels sick, she can leave the nest and die alone to save her sisters. But a pupa is trapped. If a pupa gets infected with a fungus, it becomes a ticking time bomb that could sporulate and wipe out the entire nursery. The solution is ruthless. When a pupa is terminally infected, its body chemistry changes. The waxy layer on its skin begins to emit a specific chemical signature, a death scent. Nurse workers sniffing the brood pile detect this signal. Crucially, this signal is honest. It only appears when the pupa is beyond saving. Upon detecting the signal, the nurses do not try to cure the pupa. They unwrap it from its cocoon, bite a hole in its cuticle, and spray lethal doses of formic acid inside. This kills the pupa and the fungus simultaneously. It is a destructive disinfection. The pupa effectively sacrifices its future to ensure the safety of its genetic siblings. It is functionally identical to how a viral infected cell in your body signals your immune system to destroy it. Now, Let's look at the newest frontier in this research: architectural immunity. Until very recently, we thought ants fought disease only through behavior and chemistry, but a landmark study released in late 2024 has proven that ants also use architecture as an immune defense. Researchers at the University of Bristol exposed black garden ant colonies to pathogens and watched how they dug their nests compared to healthy colonies. The results were groundbreaking. Infected colonies built nests that were fundamentally different. They increased the spacing between chambers and reduced the connectivity. Healthy nests are usually built like a small world network, where every room is easily accessible to facilitate communication. But infected colonies built modular nests. They created physical bottlenecks. This socially distanced architecture physically slowed the transmission of fungal spores. If one chamber collapsed due to infection, the lack of direct connections prevented the spread to the rest of the colony. It is the structural equivalent of a hospital building quarantine wards into its blueprint. However, no defense is perfect. The existence of such robust social immunity has driven parasites to evolve terrifying countermeasures. This is the evolutionary arms race. The most famous example is the zombie ant fungus, Ophiocordyceps. This parasite has evolved to bypass social immunity entirely. It infects the ant's brain and muscles, forcing the ant to leave the nest. Why? Because if the ant died inside the nest, the undertakers would find it, carry it out, and the hygienic workers would sterilize it before the mushroom stalk could ever grow. The zombie behavior is an adaptation specifically designed to escape the colony's efficient waste disposal teams. Then, there are the social hackers, like the Alcon Blue butterfly. This butterfly is a social parasite that infiltrates ant colonies. Its larva secretes chemicals that mimic the ant's own brood pheromones. It smells so much like an ant larva that the workers pick it up and carry it into the nursery. Once inside, the caterpillar takes the deception a step further. It makes clicking sounds that mimic the acoustics of the queen ant. Hearing this, the worker ants treat the parasite like royalty. They feed it the best food, sometimes even feeding it their own young, while the colony starves. It is a brutal reminder that for every shield, there is a sword. So what does this mean for us? Humans have been fighting bacteria with antibiotics for less than a century. Ants have been doing it for millions of years. We have much to learn. Scientists are currently researching formicomycins, a new class of antibiotics derived from the symbiotic bacteria found on African plant ants. Early tests showed that these compounds can kill superbugs like MRSA that are resistant to our current drugs. Furthermore, computer scientists are modeling human pandemic responses on ant behavior. They are looking at how ants implement localized lockdowns without a central government telling them what to do. Swarm robotics engineers are designing nurse bots that use simple, local rules like ants to detect and isolate faulty units in a swarm. In conclusion, the study of social immunity in ants reveals a profound truth about nature. Cooperation is the ultimate survival strategy. Through a combination of chemical ingenuity, architectural adaptation, and altruistic self-sacrifice, ant colonies have conquered the globe. As we face our own challenges with antibiotic resistance and global pandemics, the lowly ant offers a blueprint for survival. They teach us that in a crowded, connected world, the health of the individual is inextricably linked to the behavior of the collective. We just have to be willing to look down at the pavement to find the answers. Thanks for listening to G Fun Facts Online, and we will see you in the next deep dive.